What did that do to your personality and your adaptability when you were a little kid moving around? Did you have to make friends fast, or
Well, like any kid, we hated it every time we had to move.
what's it been like being in a partnership, and what are the pros and cons of having a partner versus you just being the man at the top?
Yeah, there are certainly times it would be nicer just to be, I'm sure, just one person making decisions and just going straight forward.
Like, it's quite a stressful kind of journey, and for these homeowners to go through.
Yeah, it can be, and I guess what's particularly hard is that when people are doing residential projects, it may be the only one they ever do in their life, so it's not like they can come with a lot of experience from doing one before and learn from that.
So has becoming a dad changed you in a way that you approach business? And
I think so. Well, it's probably made me realise that I was a bit of a dick to people who had children prior, because you just don't know.
there's still that sort of like, you know, tension that can sometimes come in between architect and builder. Like, what do you think that down to? Ben, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
We are sitting here in a real cool yet real random project that you've designed and been involved in, where essentially it's in a very busy part of town, a lot going around, and then there's this like beautiful architectural, very small commercial property that's sort of juxtaposed to the whole surrounding, right?
Yeah, it is. Like it is. We're in the middle of St. Luke's. It's a very chaotic sort of car-centric area, in a tiny little corner of a big car wash site, where we've tried to create a little office space for the owners.
Yeah. So we created some content around the project itself. So we'll release that. It's either been released recently or will be released this week when this comes out. But talk to me a little bit about that first, and then I want to dive into a little bit more into you and sort of how you got into architecture, and we'll talk a little bit about the lay of the land. But let's talk about this project first. So how did this project come to be?
So this project came to us via a builder that we'd worked with before. He and we have generally done residential projects, and it's his father's site, so it's a car wash facility that he's had for 40 years. And through that 40 years, there's never been any kind of office space. There's never been a bathroom for staff or anything. They have to rush across to the mall to go to the toilet. And then so Ben approached us with this site. It had tucked away in one corner about 35, 40 square metres of available land to try and put an office on, and to store all of their materials as well. So quite an irregular shaped site as well. So we ended up with quite a sort of tiny little wedge in the back there. And it was, I guess, an opportunity for us to be a little bit sculptural and fun, and try and bring a little bit of clear sort of architecture to what is a bit of a crazy context.
Yeah. So for the listeners that can't see it, how would you describe the building itself? Because you arrive and it's like a car wash and cars driving around and like it's chaos, and then sort of dipped into the corner is like this beautiful like kind of architectural piece.
Yeah, so it's I guess it is like a little wedge building, back in sort of the corner of the building of the site. Sorry, we've tried to make it as sculptural as possible, as robust as possible. Certainly on the ground level, where it is all made of concrete, and then trying to draw up like a floating stair up to I guess a little apartment almost floating above, and that then, I guess, northwest over the site, and then the owner of the car wash can sit up here and kind of purvey his land, really.
Yeah. You can be sort of like the king of the castle up here. There's windows
Definitely.
everywhere. You're like looking down, making sure everyone's all right downstairs, and it opens up to a nice, just a nice kind of balcony area there as well, like a deck area. So it's cool. It's like a really cool space. It's a real surprising space because it just seems like it's a very. I mean, the first time I ever saw it, I was like, wow, how seems like they've overcapitalized on this space and on this yard. Obviously, the land value of this yard is would be a lot anyway. It's probably not the highest and best use, having it as a car wash to start with. But what was
Yeah,
the idea behind like going all out? Because I think I talked to the builder and he mentioned that it was going to start with just a little shack or something, and then
yeah. So when they came to us, like, well, I guess prior to coming to us, there was thought of just putting a Skyline garage on the site, which I'm pleased they didn't.
yeah,
Um, uh, Essentially, it was an opportunity for being the builder also to showcase some of his skills. It's going to end up being his office and a bit of storage downstairs as well. Stepping back, there was the main driver for this site was to actually store everything on site that they use for the car wash. Like previously, it in the owner's garage and some sheds scattered around Auckland. So every time they needed a product, you had to race to a storage shed and come back. So this inherently becomes much more sustainable, keeping everything on site. And then it really was just a little bit of fun through the design stage to for us to see how far we could kind of push it sculpturally, and it's our job, I think, as architects to see how far we can push our clients before we get a little bit of pushback. And fortunately, with this site, Matthew, the owner, was fully on board with it.
yeah. Well, it came out beautifully, and just like the kitchen area, it's very like modern, like very robust, like you say, but very like a real modern touch, and almost like a bit of a mid-century look to it as well. Like the kitchen, I don't know if was meant to be or not, but the bathroom and everything, yes, everything upstairs here is like a little apartment almost. You could almost turn it. It almost could be a studio if you wanted it to be.
Yeah, well, I guess we brought a lot of our sort of residential sensibility to this site. We don't do a lot of commercial work. We'd like to get a lot more commercial work, but we tend not to do that. And it was a chance for us to bring something a little bit more refined and kind of homely to it. It's interesting, one of the clients, one of his regular visitors to the car wash, actually approached him a while back and asked if he could rent it out as a little inner city apartment. So it is, like fully kitted out for that as well.
Yeah, like a real like we talked before off air. It was a real real LA feel, like the sort of chaos and the cars and everything, and then it's that cool little almost
Yeah,
apartment looking
definitely. And
commercial.
I think that was the point of it, was to try and bring a little bit of refined architecture and a wee bit of sort of calmness in all the chaos as well.
Yeah. So tell me what the experience was like. We want to sort of discuss really, and this series has been a little bit about just touching on the relationship between architect, builder, and how they can best work well together. And how did you guys find that process and through this project? And we can kind of touch on like just in generalities as well.
Yeah, so I guess what made this really easy is this was a referral from a builder, so we were kind of sort of in bed pretty early, and what it does do is it allows, particularly through, I guess, more of the developed design kind of stage, for a bit of input from a builder, from somebody who we can bounce ideas off. Even if it is just down to material specifications or like ways of potentially doing things structurally that they're comfortable with. For instance, and even in this project here, the floating stairwell out the front there, working through with Ben, he was keen to do that as an in situ stair rather than a precast element, which some people might have preferred. So having that just, I guess, streamlines the process, that when it gets to building, means that everybody actually knows what they're in for, and we're not just thrusting a design and a set of drawings in front of someone saying build it.
Yeah, because there is a fine line, between. I think it's like the more the builder understands the architect and how they like to work, and the more the architect understands the builder, and then everyone will know their place, know their lane that they stay in, but also be able to assist each other.
Yeah, I think it definitely needs to be more collaborative than sort of confrontational. Like there's certain points in all projects where we can sit down and discuss options rather than somebody having to dig their heels in and say this is how it has to be.
Yeah. It's been kind of interesting to me over the years, like of just working in the industry and just sort of coming to the realization that over the years that it has been, um, combative in the past in a lot of scenarios. Why do you think there has been that, um, clash sometimes between builder and architect over the years? And I would also preface by saying I think like over the last few years it's changed a lot. But there's still that sort of like, you know, tension that can sometimes come in between architect and builder. Like, what do you think that down to?
I, I guess it's probably just a lack of general understanding of what each other does and what we bring to the table. I think it's getting better, and we like to think that we work well with builders on site and with all the people involved in a project. We certainly don't pretend that we know everything. We have a good understanding of how we want something to be achieved and the end result, but we're not too proud to ask questions and find the best way to get to that answer. And I think part of what we as a practice kind of pride ourselves on is being involved during construction as well and actually learning from that. There's no better way to learn than to draw something, see how it's interpreted on site, figure out if there is a better way to do it, and then how better to draw it next time. And I think kind of pushing sort of ego aside is and understanding that we just all want to get the best project out of it and finding a way that we can do that. And then ideally we get a builder with a similar mindset. There's certainly plenty of them out there who just want to be competitive for the sake of it, but we've tended to certainly recently be surrounding ourselves with builders who are happy to talk through details and ideally it is finding somebody who is going to look forward in a building program and ask questions before it gets to a point where we run into conflict,
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. And I think it's sort of part of that also becomes down, back in the day, like, you do have the ignorance is probably comes in, or the builder may say, oh, these architects, they just draw, they don't know how to build these things, and then the architect may be like, oh, well, this builder just builds and they don't understand design and that, and it's sort of like that real, it's kind of that old school mentality, and like you say, it is definitely changing with people getting a better understanding and also like understanding that they can they can make the whole project better by pulling, leaning on the other party.
I think so, and I think that's the onus is on everyone to make sure it is collaborative, because it's an industry that is so much referral based, and the only way we're getting work is by ending up with good projects that everyone's happy with at the end. We ultimately want a happy client at the end who's going to want to say who their architect was, and us getting in unnecessary fights with builders is not going to help that.
Yeah. How do builders, add good value in that sort of pre-construction phase? Like, how have you found over the years where the builders could get more, when they do get involved early, what are some examples of how they've been able to like add real value to you in the practice? That's been quite good to notice.
So, particularly early on, if there is a builder who's able to review some early structural schemes, provide a bit of feedback on that. If somebody would prefer to build in timber than steel, then knowing that from the outset would be good.
Yeah.
And like I said before, probably trying to feed into more kind of specification based stuff, and the less friction we can bring to it when it's actually on site, the better. The less we're going back to the council and changing specifications on materials and finishes, because we've thought through it from the outset, the better.
And how about like the cost element? Have you guys found some benefit in having the builder involved? Do you guys use quantity surveyors, or just to kind of...
Yeah, we do a combination of both. Our typical model would be to, at the end of a concept design, get an independent QS to put some numbers on it, and is short of inflation and added extras. He's generally been pretty in line with where the costs come out at the end. The benefit, obviously, of getting a builder in to do that is that they are a little bit committed to putting some numbers on it, and then hopefully they can stand by those numbers as the project evolves. What we've sometimes found though is that some builders are just really good at pricing what's in front of them and not necessarily what will come at concept stage. We don't have structure in there at a concept stage, so having a QS who can fill in those gaps is really important. But equally, we're at that stage. If we do get a builder committed to it, then getting them to kind of help provide feedback through the process to make sure we're not getting too carried away as we develop designs and get excited about detailing. That's important too.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. I can imagine, even from an architect standpoint, though, that it is hard for you guys because someone comes to you, and they come to you. They're not going to like a draftee or something like that, right? They come to you for a purpose, for a reason.
Yeah.
And they have like some ideas, but they're also coming to you to kind of challenge them. And they have dreams, but they have a certain budget. And then for you to then try to draw to that budget best you can, but then I can imagine in those meetings, you would inform them that this may push things out a bit, and then they'd go, no, let's just go. And then before you know it, it gets like, you have to like fight against your own urges of wanting to make this amazing, right? Always thinking about their budget. Isn't that quite a tricky kind of balance to keep?
It is, and it's something that we've learned over time to actually be pretty hard and fast on. If there is a definitive budget, and we just have to revolve a brief around that. We have a pretty good understanding of builder rates at the moment, and we can, like, from an initial meeting, tell somebody if that isn't aligning with what they want to achieve. We've just got a project under construction at the moment in the Coromandel and Cook's Beach, and that came with a very definitive budget. We ran some square metre rates at it, found a floor area that we thought we could achieve within that. That shocked the clients because it ended up being half the size of what their original brief was. But basically, in order to turn it into a project, that's what we need to work within, and that just then refined what the project was, and ultimately a finished smaller project is better than a large unbuilt project.
Yeah. How important is it for you guys to have it built? Like, I assume you want to see it built, right, when you draw?
Absolutely. Like we want photographs of finished projects and happy clients and people living in it than a really pretty Instagram page of things that never come to fruition.
Yeah. I know renders are getting pretty good, but renders are pretty lame if you compare it to like the actual project, actual photography on an actual project.
And I think, like I said before, our main referral base is from happy clients, and if somebody can go walk through and experience one of our buildings, that is probably the easiest selling point to trying to get future work as well.
Yeah. The process is always very interesting because we talked a little bit off air, and I was mentioning to you that through my other business, we work with a lot of builders, and we do a lot of research around the ideal clients and the process they go through of like taking on a build project, innovation or whatever. And just it's nerve-wracking because there's no real set process of how to do this, right? And so you have generally someone that's pretty competent in their day job. If you have, say, $1.5–2 million to spend on a project, you're doing pretty well, you're pretty successful financially, and which means you're probably competent in your whatever your day job is. And then all of a sudden you come to this, looking to build or renovate a home, and they don't, all of a sudden there's no set process to follow, and they have to sort of hand over control and trust an architect or trust a builder to, with their big budget, not knowing who to sort of trust or because the architect may say, no, let's get it drawn up and get 3 builders to quote right now because of the market, you're going to get the best price. And the builder would say, no, choose one builder early, and the bank manager is going to say, no, 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 use like some volume builder because it's going to be a good turnkey solution and safe. And so how, guess my question is like, do you guys find that to be the case? Like it's quite a stressful kind of journey and for these homeowners to go through.
Yeah, it can be, and I guess what's particularly hard is that when people are doing residential projects, it may be the only one they ever do in their life. So it's not like they can come with a lot of experience from
Yeah.
doing one before and learn from that. So there's an enormous amount of trust that they have in us and our advice, and we take that very seriously. So part of what we do is try and guide people and hold their hand through the entire process, let them know what they're in for, and where we will be assisting them with that. Budgets are yeah, like there's no getting away from the fact that it's incredibly expensive to build, and what we like to do is front foot all those conversations around money and budgets and what people can afford, and again, because we want to end up with a built outcome. But in terms of sort of managing the process and builders and quoting and all of that, we've done it numerous times, and we're pretty good at working through that. And in terms of tendering or working with the builder from the outset, we're pretty experienced in either way, and sometimes it is just a factor of the right sort of setup for the right client.
Yeah. So do you think there is like not the perfect, but do you think there is like a right process to follow? Or is it dependent on the market, dependent on the client?
It's a little. I think it's mostly dependent on the client and their kind of level of faith, and if they come with a builder, if they've got somebody lined up, and their trust in them. What we have found recently is that if you're borrowing a lot of money, is that the banks will want to see more than one quote. We've had two projects relatively recently where we have worked through with a builder, had some pricing. They've clients have gone to the bank to ask for money, and then the bank have turned around and asked for another quote to verify it.
Right.
So it's yeah, like we work through that, and we let people know that is the process too. Certainly, like the last few years, it's been a pretty easy market to tender, and ultimately, like I said before, because people tend to only ever do this once, they want to have as much surety as possible,
Yeah.
and a tender is one way to do it, unless they come with the utmost faith in a builder.
Yeah. And how do you guys make those tenders? Because I know the devil's advocate there would say that, then, okay, so then are they going to choose a builder on price? So do they get to then interview the builders themselves, or is it just sort of on paper? And then also, do they, is it apples for apples? Like, do you guys set up your tender in a way where they can compare apples for apples in terms of?
Yeah, 100%. So we would have like a pre-tender process where clients meet builders and have the opportunity, if they don't get along well, to cut them.
Yeah.
And then we have a very rigorous tender process where we are running a tender and providing spreadsheets to builders so that everything is all lining up nicely. So hopefully at the end, but we actually can see where there are any anomalies, or how it's all lining up.
Yeah.
But I guess price is a factor, but for a lot of clients, timeframes are a factor, and personalities are an enormous contributor to it as well. Like, it's particularly residentially a very intimate process, and
Yes.
often quite a drawn out process. A lot of our projects will be more than 12 months on site, and you need to have personalities that work
Yeah.
together and are going to be trusting of each other through it.
Yeah, because I know that there's like sometimes people, like I've talked to some builders and they said, oh, we tender, but the architect won't, or it's not interested, or the client's not interested, or whatever, to meet beforehand. And I find that that's such a crazy concept, that someone's going to just choose a builder off a piece of paper or
Yeah,
just off
no,
a
that's
price.
not a good process at all. You do need to know who you are going to be working with.
Yeah, because it's like it's that alignment piece. There's that magic of like alignment as well that comes into it sometimes. Are you gonna are you just gonna like gel, or are you gonna
Yeah.
be? Are you just not gelling for whatever reason? Because some people just don't. Sometimes it's easy to work with people. Sometimes it just
Yeah.
isn't.
Well, there's no. there's never a perfect project where there isn't some element that's a little bit fraught, and
Yeah.
I guess part of people knowing that they can work with each other is being able to work through when it does get a bit tricky.
Yeah.
When there are things to resolve or there are money things to talk about, then we need to know that builders and clients and us can all actually be on the same page and talk to each other like
Yeah.
as grown-ups.
Yeah. And you guys have a lot of different builders you work with, right? So you have like a whole different array of builders that you don't have just like one or two builders that you
No,
go back.
so over time we've worked with I'd say dozens of builders, and so we aren't in the process of kind of thrusting people in front of clients and telling them they must work with this builder. Like we've got plenty of people that we would happily work with, and again, it's just sometimes it's availability or time frames, and once we get somebody who we think lines up with the client, we'll happily put them in front of them.
Cool. So tell me a little bit. Let's go back a little bit. I want to hear a bit about how you got into it. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up around Auckland, or did you move here? Or
So I was a South Island boy,
oh,
born
cool.
in Dunedin, and then basically moved around all the South Island with just sort of following Dad's work for my childhood. We lived in probably 4 or 5 towns around the South Island. Finished up in Christchurch for high school before.
Did you lose your accent a little bit, like the roll of the R's? Did you have those R's down there back
So
then, or no?
so ours are very much south,
Like real
even
south,
like down in Invercargill way.
right?
And we actually lived there for a little while, and it's very distinctive
Yeah.
when you meet
So
somebody
not quite
from
Dunedin,
there.
right? So
No,
then, yeah, because I went to uni in Dunedin, so I was there a few years at uni at Otago. So yeah, you're actually right. It is a bit more south. It's the real Invercargill kind of guys that
that's
have
that's
that.
it.
Yeah. And what did your dad do? Why did you try?
So
Did he say?
dad was in sort of in public health. He ran a gym at some point. He ran the Heart Foundation, I think, out of in Oamaru, and was kind of responsible for like when Jump Rope for Heart was being set up in the
Right.
80s through all the schools. And then we sort of travelled around like as he got a new job, we moved around the place.
Cool. What was that like? What did that do to your personality and your adaptability when you were a little kid moving around? Did you have to make friends fast, or?
Well, like any kid, we hated it every time we had to move. But you just got good at like trying to fit in and figuring out. Yeah, you did have to be quite adaptive to new situations and trying to figure out new friend groups to jump into. So yeah,
Yeah. And did that happen all the way through to high school as well, or?
pretty much. So we finished the last 3 years of high school were in Christchurch, and then after that moved up to Auckland to study architecture.
Wow. Okay. No, I'm just because when I grew up as well, I was I also moved around every few years, and it does adapt you. Now that you look back, are you happy that you moved around a lot when you were young, or do you wish you would stayed more in one spot?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to do the counterfactual, like it certainly made you more adaptive, but equally, it's one of those things that would have been nice to have, and think sometimes to have had a more kind of stable base of like regular friends and everything. But I don't know. That's just life, and I can't change that.
Yeah, yeah, you can't change that. It's just funny how everyone grows up. Do you have a tendency now to want to stay in one spot for a long time, or do you have a tendency of getting itchy feet and want to move
Yeah,
around?
so it's funny in that I think now, and having a small child, we are in the process of hunkering down. We're very early stages of a renovation to our place, and again with the cost of building, we if and when we commit to it, it will be to stay there for 10, 15 years to actually really enjoy it.
That's cool. How is your kid?
He's 4,
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
And okay, so you're a boy,
little boy,
so
yeah.
you want him to be like settled somewhere, have some friends. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think stability is I think that's what we want for him, definitely.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you finish in Christchurch. Then when you were in high school, did you have any inclination that you wanted to be an architect? Or were you like arty, or were you like practical kind of minded, or
So
what
I'd
was the
say
vibe?
probably more practical minded. I loved maths and sciences, but one of my old man's other jobs when I was growing up, he taught technical drawing at a high school.
Mm.
So I was quite fell in love with the art of drawing, I guess. Also, I can remember one of my friends growing up. His dad was an architect and being enamoured by his drawings and what he did. And then so it was probably a combination of that, and then even in high school in Christchurch, I had a little bit of work experience for an architect in Christchurch just during holidays, and that kind of I guess consolidated what I wanted to do.
Yeah, because most people when they're in high school, they don't know. You only just, I guess you look at the vibe of what grown-ups look like and what you want to do, right? Would you want to wear a suit? Do you want to be outside and wear a tool belt, or what's the vibe, And a lot of guys don't get the work experience opportunity to be able to actually see what it's actually like, to work in that
Yeah,
environment.
I think that's really important, and even in our practice now, getting students either at architecture school or high school and bring them through to actually see what it is like to try and sit still at a computer and work. It's is really important.
So when you went in, were they all like? Did they? I mean, I don't know how long ago this was, but were they like computerized, or was it all like they were drawing on those
So
big boards?
this was very much drawing boards,
Yeah.
and it was something that fascinated me. This was sort of when, well, we're talking 30 odd years ago,
Yeah.
and and it was when CAD systems were starting to be implemented. But the chap I did work experience for was a little bit more old school. Came out of like the Ministry of Works and was and but the I think the process of hand drawing and having to think through even just layouts of sheets and where everything went and yeah, was something that just kind of caught me.
Okay, so there's definitely that sort of practical element to it. I saw this picture the other day, of like an architecture office in the 70s or something like that, or 50s or something, and it was like these massive tables, and it was just like these massive, I don't know what, it was like bigger, way bigger than like A1 or whatever, and it was like all over, and everyone was like crouched over the table, like making changes with their rulers to different things. It's like obviously things have changed a lot since then, but it was just kind of interesting, how people used to do it back in the day.
Yeah, it was a much more kind of tactile experience, and there was something quite definitive about drawing a line as well,
Yeah.
and not being able to erase it without smudging a whole sheet. So
Yeah.
there was something very, I guess, committal to what we were doing.
Yeah. Okay, so you and then I guess you went to that architecture office. You like what you saw. Um, assume something came alive in you, and you were like, okay. And then you went straight to uni. Was that
Yeah,
pretty
straight
much it?
straight to uni out of high school. I applied for both of the schools of architecture, Auckland and Wellington. I actually just kind of assumed I was going to go to Wellington. Got accepted into both. Then decided Auckland seemed like I guess the furthest place away from Christchurch, so a good
Yeah.
a good one to take. Had to scramble to find somewhere to live, so got, I think maybe the last place in one of the halls of residence, and then then moved up here.
What was that like? Coming out of a big city. You lived up here before then, or no?
No, no, it was it was great. Like, particularly being sort of thrown into like the halls with a lot of other people who were out of town and from out of town as well. It was a great bonding experience, and I guess like short of not having a like being kind of stable in one place growing up, they people I probably met in first year at university are probably the closest friends I still have.
That's cool, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of made up for the
Yeah.
lost school years of
Yeah,
moving
and
around a little bit.
yeah, and it is one of those times where everybody lets loose, and we've all
Yeah.
got some secrets kind of tucked away about each other. So
Yeah, it's like you become awfully tight with people, eh? When you have had a few drinks and you've had a few good nights out, and a
yeah,
few hangovers, and
absolutely. There's no
yeah,
better bonding experience, right?
yeah, it's like the army or something, eh? You
Yeah.
just come a bit more closer. And then having to study and all that sort of stuff as well. So Then as you did that, what was the, inspiration around architecture like? Were there particular architects that you, like, really liked? Were you that kinda guy? Did you like star architects and looked out to
Yeah,
people?
a little bit. Like it was I guess it was a bit kind of confronting coming into architecture school and being overwhelmed by the quantity and of work that was out there in the world, and it's pretty hard as a 10-year-old to try and actually figure out what it is that you like. Um, so it took me honestly, like the first few years was just trying to keep afloat, and it actually wasn't probably until sort of start or sometime in my fourth year, we actually did an overseas trip over to Italy and Croatia with the architecture school,
Cool.
and that kind of cemented, I guess, my love of what we're doing, and kind of rekindled something that actually meant that yeah, I knew what I was doing,
Yeah.
and part of it was just I guess the history of some of those places as well, and then yeah, like from that, it was just a good kind of boost to say, yeah, actually, this is something I want to do. I do very much like the kind of the tactile nature of it.
Yeah. And what sort of architects sort of stood out to you back then that you really liked?
Oh, it was a time when, like, particularly at university, we were being thrust all. I guess it was the start of a lot of CAD kind of coming in, and a lot of sort of algorithms driving some designs and architecture, and even sort of people like Peter Eisenman were pretty inspiring, and just their kind of methodical sort of his methodical kind of way of organizing and designing, and that kind of triggered a few things in me. But then a lot of it was, I guess, some of the Australian architects that are designing with materials in mind
Yeah.
was really important too, and kind of stuff that we are still trying to draw into our buildings now.
Right. So you kind of do have that sort of practical nature, eh? Where you're thinking of the materials. You're not just, as for you, it's not just about a graphic design exercise or, like just drawing some things that's going to be on a computer and there it is, looking pretty. It's kind of like, how will this be implemented? What's this going to look like? Materiality.
Yeah, I sort of told someone recently that we're not sort of a practice that tries to reinvent the wheel with every project. We try and basically make the best, most appropriate wheel for whatever it is that we're doing. And yeah, yeah, ultimately trying to get stuff built and do the best version of that.
Yeah. So okay, so then you obviously you went to finish uni and then assume you went like found a job at a local practice or something in
Yeah,
Auckland, or what
so
was that like? Were you
find it's pretty confronting when you do 5 years of study and think you're king shit, and then have to go out into the workforce and try and find a job. So what actually happened is I went back down to Christchurch at the end of the year for a holiday. Actually, while I was down there, got offered a job. I thought it was what I thought was a relatively prestigious firm, but in starting there and about, I don't know, a week in, I realised that I just wasn't getting any of the support that I needed. As a graduate, you don't know a whole heap, and you do need to go into practices that do have that support there for you, or even just understand how little you know. And then so I stuck that out for a couple of months, and then during that process, I ended up talking to a chap called Ian Cumberpatch, who was the guy I did work experience with back in high school, and then ended up moving across to work for him. And his level of care and understanding of what I did and didn't know kind of set that off again. And again, just to him working through and explaining from scratch
yeah.
how a building goes together. We'd spent 5 years at university making pretty pictures and doing wild impractical designs,
Yeah,
and
put
then
like bullshit proposals and
yeah,
yeah.
and then trying to kind of retrain yourself. Like you've sort of had that design training, but then try and like basically having somebody to take you and talk you through the very practicalities of trying to implement that, and it probably wasn't. It was sort of, yeah, like it would take 3 to 5 years of understanding how to put buildings together, document them, and then fold in design knowledge kind of on top of that eventually.
Yeah.
So Ian, yeah, like was incredibly kind of gracious and patient in teaching me how to do that, how to do a simple foundation detail, um, and then even like site visits within a few weeks would do a drawing. I got given a piece of aluminium drawing. I didn't even know which way round it goes, and trying to figure out then seeing that then get implemented and put on site, and it was like a great grounding for actually being able to understand what we do. And I think it's something that both Mike and I in our practice are very conscious about when we bring staff in, and particularly staff that aren't particularly experienced, is that we have to have a level of patience to kind of step back and not expect them to be documenting a 3-story building straight away.
Yeah. So you did almost like your apprenticeship. That's like your apprenticeship when you left
Yeah,
uni.
yeah, a little bit. I sort of had all the base kind of design knowledge and the ability to talk to people and sell myself and sell designs, but ultimately I didn't have the sort of practical knowledge to be able to know when I was getting too far in front of my skis.
Yeah. Because there's so much involved, it's just a lot. I mean, it's anything in construction, whether you're the builder or whether you're the architect. This is like so much that you have to think about, and you can't just learn it like
Yeah,
just
yeah. There
quickly,
is there's too much for one person to know as well, and that's what we've realised over time too. Is being able to trust the right people and outsource things
Yeah.
as needed is important.
How funny is it that you or I just thought about that recently as well, how um the first job you almost have, like you just mentioned there, like out of uni, or maybe if you don't go to uni, you just go work for someone out of school or whatever. It's almost that, and you stay there for a few years. That first job has quite a big impact, on you as a person, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's
absolutely. Like even like coming out of uni, we were 22 or so, and you're still pretty malleable at that stage, and finding somebody who will kind of has the patience to teach you and to kind of and to try and draw out the things that you're good at is
yeah.
really important too.
Yeah, because I even if the first job I did out of uni was there for a few years, like 5, 6 years or something like that. But then I still have like real fond memories of that time because it was that first foundational kind of job.
Yeah.
It kind of almost like forms you into the person that
Yeah.
you then
Yeah, and
become.
then like pretty early on, I realised just how rewarding it was to see a drawing turn into something that shows up on site, and
Yeah,
that somebody's actually trusting that whatever you're drawing is going to get built as well.
yeah,
Like even through university holidays, I remember spending one holidays working at a precast concrete place, and just the tactility of that and understanding that was again really foundational, and understanding that every time you draw a drawing, it is going to be picked up and tried to be interpreted by God knows how many dozens of people to turn it into a building.
yeah. So it sounds like your that first boss was like very a good teacher and kind of good at like taking you through that process. And then obviously the time came eventually for you to then start your own practice, right?
Yeah, so I guess there's one more step in from there. So this was down Christchurch. I then come back up here to work. So I left Christchurch and ended up working for probably 8 to 10 years for Julian Guthrie
Right.
up in Auckland,
Yeah.
before setting up our practice.
Cool. And was that nerve wracking? Like, or was it like were you kind of one of those guys who sort of like just waited too long before you jumped out, or you were just, was it quite nerve wracking to just kind
It,
of start your
it,
own thing?
it was really nerve wracking. So Mike and I were at similar kind of stages in our career when we decided to set up. We gave it a few kind of trial runs with teaching together at university, taking on some private jobs that we were working on, and then I think Mike quit his job first while I was still working for Julian for a little while. So we were kind of going sort of 1 foot in.
Yeah.
And then but it was terrifying, but equally we'd got to the point where I think the next challenge was figuring out how to run a practice, because nobody teaches you that. Nobody teaches you how to run a business or anything
And it
until
starts,
you're right in it.
apprenticeship starts all over again when you kick that off, right?
100%, and then you realise there is a big wide world out there, and you are fighting with a lot of people trying to get the same jobs, and but again, like that sort of that was the challenge. That was the fun part of it, was realizing that all the kind of goodwill and all of the contacts we'd made were then turned into work for ourselves.
And how did you guys know each other? Were you guys friends for a long time?
Yeah, so Mike and I went through university together.
Crazy.
Yeah, and
Cool.
and then it had, like I said, just sort of ran parallel tracks at different firms, and just got together some time and decided that we should give it a crack.
And did you guys have a project lined up or something when he jumped off, or did we?
So we did. We had a few little private jobs. We had one and one kind of big job that ended up being, I guess, our first really good big project that we had documented. I've made the mistake recently of going back and looking at some of our early fee proposals and actually just realising that's exactly why people signed us up. We were, we didn't quite know how to value ourselves at that point. But then equally, in hindsight, it's hard to know if we would have got that work if we weren't willing to kind of lowball ourselves, I guess, and just work bloody hard.
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere, right? So you either work for free or you lowball it or whatever. So, partnerships are always like interesting to me as well. I know that particularly as builders, like there's some builders that would say never, ever, ever go into partnership. I don't know. Maybe there's some complications there that are a little bit different to other businesses. But when it comes to architecture, people tend to lean into partnerships and working, having more than one person run a firm. And how have you found it? And we won't keep this bit in, so Mike won't hear this bit. But what's it been like being in a partnership, and what are the pros and cons of having a partner versus you just being the man at the top?
So I think I think for me, and I'll speak for Mike as well, having like a second opinion on everything is actually really good, just in terms of accountability, and that's kind of design wise, and that's how kind of we're running our practice. It's a pretty kind of confronting profession, and pretty daunting, and just having somebody else to throw some ideas off, or bounce ideas off is really important. There are certainly times it would be nicer just to be, like, I'm sure, just one person making decisions and just going straight forward. But ultimately, we end up, I think, with better projects and better end results by thinking stuff through, and that, I guess, goes the same for a full team, as we try and get everybody involved in and kind of our work as well.
So you guys kind of like divide and conquer, and like you have like you kind of focus on getting projects, and you have clients here, and he does that on the other end, or do you guys do everything like
So
together?
we run pretty parallel tracks. It's again something I don't know if we've figured out yet, and it is ever evolving, and it may change over time as our practice, if we grow, or however it works. But at the moment, we are generally running projects where Mike and I will be the kind of lead architect on them, and then have staff working on them with us. Occasionally we'll get really big projects and we'll both be working on them, but our sort of model is that one of us will lead it and somebody else will be there providing a bit of support and feedback as needed. It's a really fine line with architecture, because there are, like, design wise, there are a million ways to answer a brief, and sometimes it just needs somebody to do something,
Yeah.
and then get feedback along the way, rather than having two hands or two people
Like
trying to design the same thing at the same time. Like
yeah,
we've got to the point where we've realised that somebody needs to take ownership, start working on something, get something that we can talk about, and then refine from there.
yeah. You can't have like a committee, like design something from scratch. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, like fine to throw some initial ideas around before it even gets sketched out, and just kind of talk in general kind of terms. But yeah, I've certainly personally find the best way to get productive feedback and to get things moving is to actually start.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And do you guys have like opposite skill sets or anything like that it kind of works, or is it all you guys have sort of similar strengths?
I think we've got fairly similar skill sets. I think we've certainly had, I'd say, opposite personalities in terms of how we approach things, and so, but I think skill sets definitely align.
Yeah. So talk to me about your practice. So how many people you have working there? How's it set up? Who does what?
Yeah, so including Mike and I, we're a 4-person practice at the moment. We've always sort of been 3 to 5 people, and we're in a little studio in Ponsonby that is like physically limits us to being 4 or 5 people. We've always kind of run a model where we have a director running a project, and then often 1 or 2 staff members that will then pick up the project past a certain point and take that all the way through to completion. We don't like the idea of people specialising in certain areas. Like we tend to want somebody to take ownership from the start, see it all the way through to being built, and ideally learn a heap along the way.
Yeah.
Again, there's no point having somebody draw something and then another person be the person on site trying to follow it through, and then you don't learn from that experience.
Yeah.
So that's how we've always run it, and we've had a number of staff get registered while with us, because they do get that full experience, kind of
Yeah.
working through it.
Yeah. It's kind of a good reflection on you if your staff gets registered, um, like in a straightforward way, like some of the some practices around there, it's sort of like it's a bit of a shit show, and like people the people that work there, the poor architectural graduates that work there can't get registered that easily because things aren't done properly, and they may be just siloed into one little area of the practice.
Yeah,
Um,
well, no, even coming out of university, there were some pretty prestigious practices that people went into and got jobs at, but would end up. I know one person in particular who ended up in one of the big practices and ended up working on some amazing projects, but doing lighting plans on those amazing projects for
yeah,
3 years, and
yeah, yeah,
that's pretty yeah, like
yeah,
that's not overly inspiring.
yeah. Because do you think that's like the nature of the nature of the industry is that it is going to just like by default become more specialized, or do you think the benefit is being a bit more of a generalist? Because I know that um some architects see themselves more as like, I'm like a design architect, and the other ones are I like the technical drawings, and the other one, like you say, like could be lighting details, lighting specialist, and all these sort of other things. Like, is it going to move more towards um being more like specialized in those areas, do you feel?
It might be like for us, it's not a model that we want to pursue.
Yeah.
We do take a lot of pride in being like a holistic practice where we do everything,
Yeah.
or we can offer everything. Not every project takes us up on that, but we do have the skill set to guide people through the whole process.
Yeah, I think that's just like this. It's a way more fun way of doing it. It's not that inspiring, like you say, be on lighting details for 3 years on
Yeah,
one project,
but
and
I think for us particularly, it's we get clients and who would and the ideal thing is to have them working with us and our staff and one of our staff members through the whole project, because particularly residential, it is a very kind of personal process,
yeah,
and you want to have not just be passed between a whole lot of people in a practice. You want somebody to be there to through with you the whole way.
yeah. Well, it sounds like you're kind of just replicating what you experienced when you were younger.
Yeah, a little bit. It is like we're very conscious of the fact that it is a pretty fraught process, and anyone who commits to any good size kind of building is taking a bit of a leap.
Yeah. You mentioned before as well around, starting you can learn the basics of like architecture at uni, and then you go work for someone you actually know nothing, and then you need to learn how to like put an actual building together. And then all of a sudden you got to then start your own practice, and now you got to learn all again, or learn from scratch again. How do you run a business? How do you run a practice? What's sort of the biggest things that you've learned around running a business, and like, I don't know whether it's managing people or whether it's cash flow, whether it's any of the above. Like, what are some of the big sort of elements that you've learned over the years that's been the biggest difference maker for you?
So I guess for me, never really experienced it working under people, but the best part and the hardest part of what we do is dealing with people, and it's clients, it's council, it's staff, it's all of that, and just the fact that there's so many things that are unrelated to a building project that end up influencing a building project, and that yeah, everybody brings their own baggage to
Yeah.
to what we're trying to do, and honestly, the best laid plans always get scuppered. So I think it's an understanding that we are very much a service industry, and we need to be very conscious that we're not the ones funding our projects. We are working for people, and we need to find the best way to work with people rather than trying to thrust ourselves onto it.
Yeah. How much of your job is being like a psychologist or counselor, uh, helping clients through the process of?
Yeah, it's there's a decent amount of that, but part of it is just front footing the fact that there will be a lot of areas through a build that get tricky,
Yeah.
and we can anticipate that and help them. Part of it is also like it's even for clients, it can be incredibly overwhelming trying to make decisions. So our job is to I guess give them a finite amount of things that they should choose between.
Yeah.
Like we end up in a sort of a curating kind of role, to try and make things go as smoothly as possible. Every time we've sort of thrown a client out into the wild to even just go choose a tile, it becomes an incredibly overwhelming experience for them. So our process is to put 2 or 3 options in front of them, and if they don't like any of them, we'll find another 2 or 3, but
Yeah.
work through that process rather than just say, yeah, go wild.
Yeah. Here's 20. I heard that story of like a really successful like shoe salesman. I don't know if you've heard this before. Where his approach is always 2, not 3. So when women, he used to sell women's shoes, and when women used to come into the store, they'd try on a pair, and then they'd say, "Oh, can I try on that pair?" And then when they asked for a third pair, he would always ask, "Oh, which one would you like me to put back?" And so he always kept the choices to 2, not more than, because
Yeah,
he realized over time that when he gave them more than 2 choices, they end up not buying the shoes and they walk out. But when he only gave them 2 options at any given time, his sales went through the roof. So that's
yeah,
kind of,
and I haven't heard that before, but it's not dissimilar to what we're
yeah,
trying to do I guess to limit people's ability to get too confused through the whole process.
yeah. How do you guys effectively pull, like, I mean, it's obviously it's called a brief, or but how do you like effectively take what's in a client's head in terms of what they want to get, and then put that on paper? Is there like a process that you guys run through, or is it just a whole lot of conversations? What
Yes,
is it?
we have a pretty robust kind of briefing process. We will often from initial discussions with clients, we'll sit down and talk about and have a bit of a kind of free ranging conversation around everything. We will then document that in a sort of a briefing template, put that all down, our understanding of what it was we talked about and what they want, and then send that through to them as a Word file that will trigger a few conversations and get them to then fill it out.
Yeah,
So we like our brief will be it's sort of a combination of practicalities, and like, how many bedrooms people want, how many bathrooms, but then kind of dives in to be a little bit more touchy-feely around kind of what their perfect kind of day is, where their favourite holiday was, what they like to eat and drink. Mostly because, like in all our residential projects, we want to know
Yeah.
about the people who are living there, and sort of, yeah, it's trying to figure out what their aspirations are, but then equally actually who they are, because sometimes they aren't the same thing as well.
Yeah. Because I guess do you find that it's true that a lot of homeowners come to you not thinking about a lot of those things that they may be thinking floor layout potentially and like aesthetics, and that's pretty much what they think, and they don't necessarily think livability and like and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's everyone's different. We will occasionally get clients who have tried to draw their own floor plans,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they are actually the hardest because we end up having to interrogate a design that they've got in their head and have probably spent, God knows, months or years kind of mulling over, and so we end up having to almost do yeah, kind of a breakdown of that design, explain why it's wrong, and then represent something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like everyone's different. Like some people will come with a very very pragmatic brief, and then it's our job to try and tease out as much about them that can make it a personal kind of project, because we are ultimately trying to find those little things that we can personalize to them,
Yeah.
and not just make it something that they could have plugged into an algorithm and spat out 10 options, you know.
Yeah. Because there's so many elements to it, like you it's about the aesthetics and it's about the functionality, and then it's about how the space will be experienced from the inside out and from the outside in, and then it's like sunlight and it's the land and like wind and the conditions. Like there's so many things you guys have to think about. It's almost, in my brain's almost like, yeah, I almost want to use some sort of AI or something just to kind of put it in there because there's so many things to process. As we're all getting a bit dumber now with AI, I am certainly. But how do you got like, okay, there's a lot to it. Does that all come quite naturally to you because you're kind of a practical kind of guy, or there's some elements that come more easy than
Oh,
others?
sometimes it does. It's like honestly, like every project is a bit of an existential crisis. Like they say, I've got no
For a
idea,
while.
no idea how to do this,
Yeah.
and it is just working through the same process that we do on every project. You know, it's like, yeah, working through a brief, trying to figure out the site, what's important, what do we want to orientate towards, like literally where is the sun on the site, which our process is very contextual to the site and to our clients, so we don't have like a backlog of dozens of beautiful sculptural buildings that we're just waiting for the ability to plonk them onto a site.
Yeah.
Every project starts from scratch again. And yeah, like I said, like it is every single project. It's just like, oh, I've got no idea how this is going to work until it does, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden things click and start kind of rolling through. And we have sort of a very much a process of alternating between kind of 3D and sculpture and how things look on the outside versus how they actually will be planned, and kind of going back and forward constantly to try and find that right kind of balance.
Yeah. Do you guys have a style?
I don't know if we do. I uh, we often get asked that, and I'm not sure what the style is. I think we're very interested in kind of being honest with materials and spaces. We're not trying to do anything too tricky, but equally trying, yeah, like I said, trying to be honest with our materials, and very context dependent. You know, we're not trying to thrust designs into places where they're not appropriate.
Yeah. What are the like biggest like design mistakes you reckon people are making these days when you look around? Not to throw anyone under the bus or anything, or you, but what are some things that you see that's like big no-nos that you see all the time?
Um, I'm not sure I've got a great answer for that. I think a lot of it comes down again to context, and there are, you can see Well, one of the things I hate is when we're doing a fair bit of work through the Coromandel at the moment, and you drive through these beautiful beach towns, and all of a sudden there's a scattering of brick and tiles that should be in the middle of like an Auckland subdivision, and it's so out of place there. So I think for us it's well, for me personally it is the just lack of context and lack of
Yeah.
understanding of where buildings are and what they're supposed to be doing on particular sites.
Yeah. What about I had this argument with someone the other day about putting the sink inside, when you have like an island bench, putting the sink on the island bench versus like away from the island bench. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, very, very dependent. I'd prefer not to have it in there because I feel like, particularly an island bench, is the kind of place that people gravitate to, and you're wanting to pass drinks across a bench, and having a sink and a tap in the road is not conducive to that.
Yeah. That's what
Um,
I thought.
so
That's what I
I
said.
think thrusting the like pushing the amenity out to the kind of the edges of kitchens, and then having, if an island bench is about a workspace or a gathering point, then keep it as clean as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just sorry. I thought I'd ask that question just to like prove my point of of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
In terms of like the business side of things for you, I want to know as well just before, and we're almost running out of time, like because it goes pretty quick. But what are some of like can you remember some of the biggest kind of business mistakes that you guys made like in the early years that sort of comes to mind?
Um, I'm not sure if we've made any real mistakes. We've run a pretty kind of slow and steady kind of progression as a business. Like we never have never kind of, like, I guess our main driver of setting up was to maintain a sustainable business
Yeah.
and not get too big, or not sort of take on projects that we were uncomfortable with. I, th- I think, well, that's probably one, is we've over time realized a few of the red flags on potential projects that we, in the initial stages or in the first few years of practice, we would say yes to absolutely everything, regardless of what type of project and who we were working for. We've got, and I won't expound too much on it, but internally some kind of key kind of triggers that just, yeah,
Red
throw up,
flags.
throw up a flag, and then it is a second conversation about whether we actually want to take on
Yeah.
that project, and I guess that's only done by experience. So it's hard to say that was something that we did wrong, because it's something we needed to do to have got to the point that we know those things.
Yeah. Because I mean, you just go, oh, it reminds me of that other project that
Yeah.
didn't go so well. So
Yeah, and
maybe,
well, and certainly initially it was just like, oh God, if anyone's coming to us, let's just say yes to everything, and yeah, and we probably had to establish a business, but yeah, having kind of worked through those, and then seen how those, yeah, I guess those red flags have then through the course of a project just
mm,
got bigger and bigger. Is, yeah, now we've got a few things that we just will draw a line through and say no.
yeah. In a world with a lot of um, external influences, a lot of distractions, a lot of, um, let's say, negative kind of influences from, scrolling, doom scrolling at 11 o'clock at night or whatever the case may be that we all get into sometimes. Um, Mental health is always kind of like a big thing that pops up, and the word mental health sort of just been, I don't know, maybe it's like been overused too much and do different things. But I guess when it comes to someone that runs a business, running a business is not always easy. Like you mentioned, a lot of people management, cash flow management, clients, and all that. How do you deal with keeping a positive mindset? And have you struggled at times, especially in the early days, to kind of like where you found yourself a bit down the dumps for an extensive period of time?
Yeah, I'm very conscious that is a big factor. There's, particularly early on, it's hard not to switch off, and I guess what I have learnt is that you need to almost actively have time where you're not doing work or not thinking about work. It's so hard not to check your emails before going to bed, and it's honestly the worst thing you can do is if you get a shitty email from a client or a builder or so on, and you can't, you feel like you can't kind of switch off. So for me, it is like actively booking in time where I'm not doing work, when I'm actually going and doing something. And so the last weekend, me and my little boy did a boys' trip to the Coromandel. We actually went to 2 building sites, so it kind of was work. But went to a roof shout, went to another building site, and then just did our thing. And apart from chatting to builders on sites, I didn't look at my phone for work at all. So that's for me, it's something I've had to learn is to actively book in.
Yeah.
Like just know in advance I'm not going to work this day. Or
Yeah.
I'm not going to check my phone after a certain point in the evening. Because it doesn't actually matter. Like I'll get at it first thing in the morning anyway.
Yeah. And how's that changed with having a child now versus before?
Well, I think, like I'm sure, like everyone knows, it's just reprioritized everything, and just having to actively spend time with him, and then try and set an example where I'm not on my phone all the time too, so that he doesn't think that's normal. So I think that's the priority. And then when we are kind of sitting on our watching or having screen time, trying to actively make it that we're watching a game of basketball or watching the Warriors or something together. So it is something we can do together rather than apart on screens.
Yeah. So has becoming a dad changed you in a way that you approach business? And
I think so. Well, it's probably made me realise that I was a bit of a dick to people who had children prior, because you just don't know.
Like we all are.
Yeah, and so that's kind of made me just kind of realise that I probably should have been better. But yes, you don't know if you don't know. But it certainly kind of made a little bit easier also to engage with clients with children and understand some of their needs, but also actively to just be able to tell people, like, hey, I'm not available, I'm doing a school pickup or something, and so I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if anyone kicks up a fuss about that, then maybe I don't want to work with them.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? I had something with a prospective client the other day, and my daughter had she had like a birthday party or something like that a little bit late, and it was during the week, and then my wife just somehow could get us into clip and climb, So we did that, and then I had to like change an appointment with a prospective client, and he wasn't like very happy about it. And I explained to him the situation. He wasn't very happy about it. For me, that was like a little bit of a red flag. The fact that he wasn't very understanding of that I wanted to go to my daughter's thing, and that's why we had to postpone our meeting. And so it is what it is.
And that to us is one of the red flags if people can't appreciate that we're human as well, and we do have our own kind of lives and personalities, and we're not just there just as a drafting house for potential clients. Then that's one of the triggers that turns us off as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate so much that you're coming on today, Ben, and this is a cool project we're in, and people will be able to go check that out. And did you have fun?
I had a great time. Yeah, no, it's really good, and honestly, like, it's nice to be able to talk about architecture and for more people to understand what it is we do and why we do it.
Yeah, and it's definitely not an easy job. So commend you for that, and you guys do amazing work. So people listening, go check you guys out. And thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Cheers.